Hello guys, let's talk about Azure Bastion. Azure Bastion is a fully managed platform as a service resource by Microsoft that allows you access your virtual machines remotely without having to use public IP addresses over RDP or SSH. And the good thing about this is that it is secure. That's the most important thing about Azure Bastion. So what that means is that you can actually access virtual machines without attaching a public IP address to that virtual machine. In fact, here the Bastion service will use a public IP address for you to make this sort of connection possible, but the public IP address is attached to the Bastion host and not to your virtual machine. And it's usually an environment where you need secure remote administration for virtual machines. You're trying to connect your virtual machine remotely, but you also want it to be secure. That it's very useful for such environment. But Azure Bastion here is not a free service. In fact, it's a billable service actually. It has different SKUs that are all charged. In fact, at a point in time when I started using Bastion, I left my Bastion host running for a couple of days because I didn't know it was billable. And I came back only to realize that I had lost over $30 worth of Azure credit. So there are different billable prices for different SKUs. There is standard, there is premium, and there's also other levels which you have to check out. So guys, if you've stayed to this point, I'm going to show us how to create a Bastion host on the Azure portal and use it as a means to access our virtual machine without having to expose our virtual machine to the public internet. So join me guys, let's go. So let me show us how to do this. So let's even try connecting to our VM without creating a Bastion service for it. Let's see if that's going to be possible. So this is a private IP address. Had it been enabled a public IP address or attach a public IP address, it would have been here also. So let's download our RDP file and see if it's going to work. So this is a private IP address, and like I said earlier, we can't connect to a VM using the private IP address. So it's either we establish a VPN connection, or we use a public IP, or we create a Bastion like we're about to do. So as you can see here, we can connect to our virtual machine. So let's create a Bastion instance and connect to our virtual machine. So we are going to deploy our Bastion. I'm going to configure this manually so we see how this can be done. So I'm going to call this Bastion. VM Bastion, so I remember. So the instance count, so okay, the region East US, I'll leave it here. Availability zone, I won't take anything here, I'll just leave it here. Tier standard. The instance count here simply it's more like a way of improving high availability in an Azure environment. So let's say we have other administrators who are trying to access other virtual machines also. With a higher instance count, it means that they would be able to access their virtual machines using Azure Bastion in that environment without having to face issues from traffic and other service related issues. So the instance count helps in doing that. So I'm going to put it in a virtual network, and it's important to note that when you create a Bastion service, it has to be on the same network the virtual machine was created on. So in my case, this is where my virtual machine is. So I'm also going to create my Azure Bastion instance here. So create a Bastion service without attaching a subnet, just like most other resources, right? So we're going to attach a subnet to this by clicking on manage subnet configuration. So let us create a subnet for our Bastion. So already have a subnet here, but this one here is for my virtual machine. So let's create another one. So if you have a good knowledge of IP addresses, this is where your knowledge of subnetting would help you, logically break your network into smaller parts. So I'm just going to click here on add. This is a subnet here. This is the starting address for my subnet here. So I'm just going to give it choose Azure Bastion as a purpose for this virtual network, and the name here automatically it has chosen the name Azure Bastion Subnet, and everything here is okay. And it's also important that when it comes to the CIDR, you can't go higher than 26 when creating a Bastion subnet. So these are all the available slashes here. So I'll go with this and we'll proceed. So successfully added subnet. So we're just going to leave this menu and go back to where we were. So automatically it has taken the subnet I've just created now. So we are going to proceed to continue. So we can also see here that it has a public IP address which will be attached to the Bastion instance and not to our virtual machine. So let's create a new IP address. Okay, the name is here already, vnet pass IP, taken automatically. You can always choose from existing private IP addresses if you have existing IP addresses, but you don't have any existing public IP address. So I'll just continue. So let's continue. Okay, everything here is okay. Tags, we've spoken about tags severally, so let's just review. So guys, we can see that we have successfully passed our validation requirements. So let us just click here, create, to proceed. So guys, our Bastion has finally been deployed after ages. Let's go to the resource. So this is our Bastion here. This is what it looks like. This is an overview of our Bastion service. We can see the public IP address here. All right, then there's also the virtual network here. So let's connect to our VM using the Bastion service. That's okay. No, let's go back to our VM and connect. So this was the VM we were trying to connect to, this VM here. So we're going to connect to it using Bastion now. So let's go. Connect. Oh, sorry. Just gonna put this. So let's connect now. So guys, we've been able to connect to our virtual machine using Azure Bastion without having to attach a public IP to that virtual machine. So what that means is that our virtual machine has a higher security than it would normally have if we had used a public IP to RDP into our virtual machine, right? So Bastion is good in cases where you want to have secure remote connection as an administrator. It's also good for enhanced security in hybrid environments, right? Then it also it's also good for simplified access for developers. It provides an easy way to test and debug applications running on Azure VMs without having to RDP into such environments. So we've used the Bastion service now to have access to this VM now. So guys, I'll end this training here. I'm going to end this workshop here. Please don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and also share this video or this workshop training to people who have interest in this sort of materials. So cheers guys, till some other time. Bye.